Sorry about the delay. My work has not gone the way I really wanted it to. So yeah. Let's see. Okay, so we have a theme for this week, and let me get my timer set up. And so hello, Brooke. Hello, Jill. Sarah, thank you for joining. And Angie, and anyone else that's joining but I can't see. So I guess this is like moderately interesting to have someone who's going to do a guided meditation who's sort of like beyond angry. So that'll be interesting, right? So does this mindfulness crap really work? If you don't know, this is my experiment for the month of November. Afternoon Idol is like a play on, it's a pun. It's not very clever, but a play on the previous publication that Dr. Samuel Johnson used to do back in the 1800s called The Idler. So I'm a certified mindfulness meditation coach in the Unified Mindfulness System. You can find out more about that at unifiedmindfulness.com. I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a social worker. There's a lot of things I'm not. I'm also not very calm right now. But I have this tool called meditation, and it's pretty handy. So what we're going to do is the Unified Mindfulness System has a way of meeting reality, or a way of looking at how we meet reality. And that's to use abstractions as a way to amplify our connection to a certain extent with what's going on and what can go on in any moment. And the idea is that any aspect of your sensory experience could be sort of slotted into these categories that Shinzen Young has come up with and has been amplified by Juliana Ray in the system of visual stimulus, either inner or outer, auditory stimulus, either inner or outer, and physical or emotional body sensations. So sensations in the body. And so if you have someone who, there's sort of classical thoughts of like, take deep breaths or breathe into a bag, which actually does work. But if you find yourself in a sort of situation where you're out of the state that you'd kind of like to be in, there are a few ways to address that. Probably the most pragmatic is if the breath isn't a challenge for you, you can use the breath almost as a sort of remote control to chill the body out. Another way to consider that is that when you're in an activated situation or you're in an activated stance, you can focus on things outside of you. And so you remain in the present moment, but by focusing out or anchoring away is another way of thinking about that. You begin to sort of connect with things that may seem either stable or at least sort of move you into a different framing. So one of the ones that so you'll often hear this if someone's sort of very upset about something. One of the Zen thing is where is your feet, right? That's the sort of Zen quip. In other words, feel where you are, sort of grounded. But another way of framing that is to look for two things that you see, or three things you hear, or four things that you could touch, or I don't know, one thing you smell. But there's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 progression in that anchoring away that is often offered for youth and adolescents. And so we can kind of leverage a bit of this wisdom from an experience perspective. For me, hear out is one of my go-tos. And so hear out and feel out, as we were looking at last week. So the out here is indicating the external side of that category, the external side of the sounds that are around us. So there is a hear in component, and that would be mental talk. But in this situation, the hear out, we may find that there are noises around us that are agitating, but there's also noises around us that may be calming. So the hum of a refrigerator, or the sort of consistent sound of air being blown through a vent, the sort of the pattern of a ceiling fan. I live in Arizona, and so ceiling fans are usually going very often. I can use that with the noting practice, and that keeps me in the present moment and kind of away from what may be stirred up in inner activation. And so inner activation is another way of saying that for what's coming up for me, I may be experiencing it as a feel in emotional body sensation that triggers a hear in and a see in, and then those three things can sort of form the sort of composite system that has a feedback cycle. And so by focusing out, using a noting technique, I can kind of interrupt a little bit of that. I'm not sort of pushing it away, but I'm more sort of skillfully diverting my attention. And then what we've been doing in these sits is contrasting. And so I offer this as an idea that we will have we'll always have a something that's a technique. And then we'll look at the technique of no technique, or what's referred to in the system as do nothing, what appears in a lot of other traditions under different names. So Mahamudra is one of those names in the Tibetan system. Shikantaza or Zazen is in the Soto-Japanese Zen tradition. And then choiceless awareness is another that is helpful. And so we can look at is I have this mnemonic that I picked up. I'm not sure if where my girlfriend picked it up, but a predict and prepare. And so I know I'm in a situation where I'm out of my state that I'd like to be in. So I can predict that I'm potentially going to have a challenging sit. And by preparing, or my next step would be preparing for that. And so that may mean that when I get into the nothing phase, that I'm not feeling supported. And so I can make a decision about how much do I want to experiment with that? How much do I want to remain in that? And then I can make that decision. One decision that's always available to you is to get up from your meditation and do something else. Go for a walk or any sort of other thing. So you can sort of suspend the practice. That is always an option. So we're going to do a 15-minute sit. I'll offer you a little bit of the pre-flight checklist to settle in. We'll do hear out as our something for today. And then we'll look at the other side, the contrast side of that, which is do nothing. So I invite you to sit in a relaxed and or actually I should say, sit in a dignified posture that would help you be both relaxed and alert, whatever that means to you. Usually for most people, that's a sort of upright quality. So the spine is tall, the torso is relaxed, not efforting. And we adopt this posture as one way to help the nervous system clue into that we're shifting out of sort of other practices, that we're doing something different. And so it's a way of embodying our intention to sit. And then just looking for tension. So I often invite you to look for tension in the sort of around the eyes, the mouth, the jaw, the neck, the shoulders. So you can always sort of be a little more active with that. So a shrugging of the shoulders is one way to go. And then the other is if you know you're in a sort of upregulated state or you're already activated, to just check in and make sure that the belly you're able to belly breathe. So you're able to expand into the belly. Reason being for that is if we contract the belly, we keep our breathing up high in the lungs. And so we want to have the ability to expand. And why do we want that? Because our tempo for breathing is to breathe low into the bottom of the lungs and slow through the nose. So we breathe in through the nose as a way of offering a back pressure that slows down our breathing. And we breathe low into the lungs, which is another way of getting the parasympathetic system online. So that breathing pattern, that slow and low tempo, helps us release the vagal brake. That's the vagal nerve, which is, I think, means wandering, and begins to help stimulate the vagal nerve, and that gets our parasympathetic system online. And so we begin with our something part of the practice. Again, this is a noting practice. The structure of a noting practice is that we'll be directing our attention within one of the sense categories, or potentially all, but for today, just one of those sense categories. Our focus range is external sounds. And we'll use the label here optionally to label external sounds. So I can hear the fan on my computer. Probably you can hear it as well. I notice that. I soak my attention in. And then I offer here as a sort of supportive. Realizing that my attention is going to be drawn into other areas. That's okay. It's an opportunity for us to have a no big deal tone. If you are labeling and you're upregulated, it's always good to check in to see the tone of the label. So we're saying that label mentally. Even in our mental talk, we may have a sort of slanting towards a more aggressive tone, maybe. I recommend that when you're labeling, we do so with what's referred to by Shinzen as equanimity voice. Very Switzerland. And if you're new to labeling, one of the things that may be helpful is to get a pleasing rhythm to the labeling. So don't feel like it's Pokemon. You don't have to catch every sensation. Just remaining with what's going on. So explore here out for a while. One ironic gotcha can be when you focus on hear out, there is no out. There's suddenly, now that you're looking for external sounds, there are none. So if that begins to contribute to mind wandering, you can always consider adding in a label for that scenario. And we can consider when there are no sounds, that's a form of rest. So there's an absence of activation, and we can label that rest. So sometimes it's helpful to consider a sit to be your own adventure. So one option can say behind door number one would be that we can drop the technique and we can do nothing. Option two would be to experiment with do nothing and know that I have the back. Maybe you have a home base, or maybe you can work with what's coming up. In the system, we call that recycling the reaction. And again, that third option would be to just suspend the practice. And these negative states can be like a tractor beam, and it's really difficult to get out of. So, your choice. So again, if you've chose the do nothing side of the contrast, we're allowing our attention to go wherever it wants. If it wants to focus on things that are annoying, it will focus on things that are annoying. So in allowing our attention to focus on thoughts, we're allowing, but we're not adding any fire to the fire, or firewood to the fire. We're observing, not producing. If your eyes have been closed, I invite you to open them at your own pace and connect to the surroundings. Just a quick thought. I dropped in a UM-ism during the do nothing part, which is a little Shinzen and also Juliana Ray like to, they'll have these sort of very succinct phrasings of language, and there's a precision and power in that terseness. But then that means that for me to use that, you need to know what it is. So I use the term recycle the reaction. And the unified mindfulness system, the sort of core practice for it is this notion of see, hear, feel. And the idea being, again, is that if we're noting in those categories, then we can meet any sensory experience. So what recycle the reaction is nodding to, regardless of how upregulated I am, the sensations around my emotion, whether it's anger or grief or, epic disappointment, whatever it might be, it's going to come up as some combination of those categories. So it's going to come up as, maybe it'll come up as a hear in that generates see in that creates feel in. And so that internal system may sort of churn. And so our approach or our options, one is to look at the shift from whatever technique we're doing to that reaction, the upregulation, and to begin to tease apart that into hear in, see in, feel in, or the combination thereof. So if you have combination of two categories, you can compound note it, so see here, or you can just pick one. It's whatever is simpler. Again, there's no one's scoring. There's no right or wrong. The intent of noting is for us to remain in contact with the experience, or to be skillfully using the noticing and labeling as a way to be in contact with what's going on. The idea being that it's more difficult for us to, or when we separate and we disembody, that experience is actually leads to more suffering. So recycle the reaction is a way that a strategy you could approach a sort of turn toward if you feel resourced. And the if you feel resourced is the really important part. If anyone has told you have to do that, please don't, maybe they had well-meaning intents, but you don't have to do any of that. So yeah, so just as an offer. So for me, I played with do nothing, but then noticed where I was headed. So just in noticing and seeing, can I take away the firewood? Can I remove the fuel? Um, and then kind of come back to dropping the technique and just being in this creaturely body, knowing I'm going to get pulled away, back to the creaturely body, the free range quality of it's okay for us to wander off, and we'll go wherever we want to go next. So I very much appreciate everyone for joining. Also, Jill and Sarah, you've been in a large percentage of these now, so thank you so much. And a delight that Angie and Brooke could join, and other people that I know are watching. So yeah, have a great day.